The Roswell Files, The Day the Sky Fell in New Mexico. Chapter 1, The Crash in the Desert, a Headline for the Ages. What if I told you that the modern world, our world of paranoia, secret projects, and the deep-seated belief that we are not alone, did not begin in a laboratory or a boardroom, but on a dusty sheep ranch in the middle of nowhere? It was July 1947. The United States was basking in its post-war glow, but a new kind of tension was simmering beneath the surface. People were looking at the sky, and for the first time in history, the sky was looking back. On a scorching night near Roswell, New Mexico, a thunderstorm of biblical proportions tore across the desert. In the morning, the world would never be the same. This is not just another story about little green men. This is the Roswell Files. It is a deep-dive investigation into the single most famous, most debated, and most covered-up event in the history of the 20th century. In this audio journey, we are going to strip away the pop culture kitsch and the neon green tourist traps to look at the gritty, confusing, and terrifying reality of what happened on the Foster Ranch. To understand Roswell, you have to understand the atmosphere of 1947. This was the summer of the saucers. Just weeks earlier, a pilot named Kenneth Arnold had reported seeing 9 crescent-shaped objects flying near Mount Rainier in Washington. He described their movement like a saucer skipping across water. The press caught the phrase, and the term flying saucer was born. Suddenly, everyone was seeing them. The country was in a state of high-altitude hysteria. Enter William Mac Brazel. Mac was a simple ranch foreman, not a man prone to flights of fancy. On the morning of July 5th, while surveying the damage from a particularly violent lightning storm, he found a debris field that stretched for nearly a mile. It wasn't just metal, it was weird stuff. He described bits of foil-like material that you could crumple into a ball and watch it unfold itself perfectly like memory metal. He found lightweight beams with strange purplish symbols that looked like hieroglyphics. Mac didn't think aliens. He thought crashed plane or government project. He waited a few days, but eventually he loaded a box of the debris into his truck and drove into Roswell to see Sheriff George Wilcox. Wilcox, seeing the strange material, did what any sensible lawman would do in 1947. He called the Roswell Army Airfield. At the time, the RAAF was home to the 509th Composite Group, the elite unit that had dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. These were the most highly trained men in the military. They sent out Major Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer, to investigate. Marcel was stunned. He saw the sheer volume of the debris and the impossible properties of the material. On July 8, 1947, the military did the unthinkable. They issued an official press release. The headline of the Roswell Daily Record shouted in giant block letters, "RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region." For a few hours, the world stopped spinning. The military had admitted it. They had a saucer. They had the proof. And then, as quickly as the fire had started, the military dumped a bucket of ice water on it. Chapter 2, The 24-Hour Turnaround, Balloons, Boards, and Buried Truths. Less than 24 hours after the flying saucer headline hit the streets, the narrative shifted with a violence that suggested extreme panic at the highest levels of the Pentagon. The debris was flown from Roswell to Fort Worth, Texas, to the office of Brigadier General Roger Ramey. By the time Jesse Marcel arrived, the memory metal and the hieroglyphic beams were gone. In their place, scattered across Ramey's office floor, were the tattered remains of a standard weather balloon and a radar target made of aluminum foil and balsa wood. The military issued a second press release. Major Marcel, they claimed, had made a mistake. He was an over-eager officer who had misidentified a simple weather balloon. The press, largely deferential to the military in the wake of World War II, swallowed the story. The Roswell Daily Record ran a follow-up. General Ramey empties Roswell saucer. But let's pause for a second. Major Jesse Marcel was a high-level intelligence officer for the only atomic strike force on the planet. Are we to believe he couldn't recognize a weather balloon? Weather balloons were a common sight in New Mexico. Soldiers at the RAAF saw them every day. The discrepancy between the indestructible debris Brazel found and the flimsy balsa wood shown in Ramey's office is the foundation upon which 70 years of conspiracy theories have been built. This chapter looks at the psychology of the cover-up. Why the sudden change? If it was just a weather balloon, why involve the elite 509th Composite Group? Why fly the debris across state lines under heavy guard? And why was Mac Brazel held in military custody for nearly a week, returning to his ranch a changed, silent man who refused to ever speak of the incident again? In the eyes of the public in 1947, the story was dead. Roswell fell into obscurity, a quirky footnote in the history of the Great Saucer Scare. For 30 years, the dust settled over the Foster Ranch, and the witnesses went about their lives, keeping their secrets tucked away in the shadows of the Cold War. But secrets have a way of breathing, and in the late 1970s, the Roswell file was about to be ripped open once more.
Chapter 3: The Witnesses and the Whispers, the 1970s Revival. The modern UFO movement as we know it didn't start in 1947. It started in 1978. That was the year a nuclear physicist and UFO researcher named Stanton Friedman tracked down a retired Jesse Marcel. Marcel was no longer bound by his military active-duty silence, and he was ready to talk. He told Friedman that the debris he had found in the desert was not of this world. He claimed what the weather balloon story was a total fabrication, and that he had been forced to pose with the fake debris for the cameras in General Ramey's office to save face for the military and keep the public calm. This revelation was the spark that turned Roswell into a global phenomenon. Suddenly, the silence was broken. More witnesses began to emerge from the woodwork, people who had been children or young adults in 1947. We heard from Glenn Dennis, a young mortician working in Roswell at the time. He claimed he received a frantic call from the base asking for small, hermetically sealed coffins. He even claimed a nurse he knew had seen small, non-human bodies being autopsied at the base hospital before she was abruptly transferred and effectively vanished from his life. Then there were the second crash site stories. While Brazel found a debris field, others claimed there was an actual craft found further away in the San Augustine Plains, containing the remains of its occupants. The descriptions were chillingly consistent. Small beings, roughly 4 feet tall, with large, hairless heads and large, slanted eyes. This chapter explores the weight of these testimonials. How much of these stories was genuine memory, and how much was influenced by the burgeoning science fiction culture of the late 70s? We look at the credibility of the witnesses. Some, like Marcel, had everything to lose and nothing to gain by lying. Others perhaps were looking for their 15 minutes of fame in a town that had long been forgotten by the rest of the world. But the most compelling part of this revival wasn't the aliens, it was the consistency of the military's behavior. Every witness described a massive, coordinated effort to intimidate the local population into silence. People were told their families would be in danger if they spoke. If it was just a weather balloon, why the threats? Why the sealed coffins? As the 1980s progressed, the Roswell story grew into a mountain of evidence that the government was hiding something massive. But as we're about to see, the something might have been even more terrestrial and more dangerous than an alien spacecraft. Chapter 4: Project Mogul, the secret science of the Cold War. In 1994, under intense pressure from the public and the General Accounting Office, the Air Force finally released a definitive report on Roswell. They admitted that the weather balloon story was indeed a lie, but they didn't admit to aliens. They admitted to something called Project Mogul. During the late 1940s, the United States was terrified of a Soviet nuclear test. We needed a way to detect a Russian atomic blast from halfway across the world. Scientists discovered that there is a specific layer of the atmosphere where sound waves can travel thousands of miles without losing intensity. This layer acts like a natural sound tunnel. Project Mogul involved launching massive trains of balloons, sometimes over 600 feet long, carrying sensitive microphones into this channel to listen for the sonic signature of a Soviet nuke. Because these balloons had to be incredibly lightweight, they were made of materials that were cutting edge at the time. The Project Mogul balloons were highly classified. They used radar targets made by a toy company in New York, which used balsa wood and a specific type of adhesive tape. Interestingly, this tape had purple floral patterns on it. To a rancher in the desert who had never seen high-tech equipment, these patterns might look like alien hieroglyphics. The memory metal could have been a new type of foil or specialized plastic used to keep the sensors at the right temperature in the freezing upper atmosphere. If a Mogul balloon crashed, the military couldn't admit what it was. To admit to Mogul was to tell the Soviets exactly how we were spying on them. The weather balloon was a convenient lie to protect a vital national security secret. But does Project Mogul explain everything? It explains the debris, sure, but does it explain the small coffins? Does it explain the non-human bodies? The Air Force's 1997 follow-up report suggested that the bodies were actually high-altitude crash test dummies used in later projects, and that witnesses were simply confusing events from different years. This explanation, while scientifically plausible, felt like another weather balloon to the true believers. They argued that the dummies weren't used until years after 1947. The gap between the official explanation and the witness accounts remains the heart of the Roswell mystery. Chapter 5: The UFO Capital, a legacy written in the stars. Today, Roswell, New Mexico is a place where the streetlights are shaped like alien heads and the local McDonald's is shaped like a flying saucer. The town has fully embraced its mystery, turning a 1947 controversy into a multi-million-dollar tourism industry. But beneath the neon lights and the plastic souvenirs, there is a profound human story about our relationship with the unknown. Roswell has become a modern myth. It represents our collective distrust of authority and our deep spiritual longing for something beyond our mundane existence. Whether it was a mogul balloon or a craft from another star system, Roswell changed how we view the government. It was the birth of the deep state narrative, the idea that there is a shadow government that knows the truth about the universe but refuses to share it with the rest of us. In this final chapter, we look at the legacy of the crash. We explore how Roswell paved the way for the X-Files, Area 51, and the modern obsession with UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. We look at the declassification of the Pentagon's own UFO files in recent years, which have brought the conversation back into the mainstream. For the first time in 70 years, the government is admitting that there are things in our skies that they cannot explain. The Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines, humanity has always built monuments to the unknown. In the 20th century, we didn't build a monument of stone, we built a monument of secrets. We built Roswell. Whether you believe in the balsa wood toys of Project Mogul or the silver-skinned visitors from the stars, one thing is certain: Roswell is the ground zero of the modern world. It is the place where the sky fell, and we've been trying to piece it back together ever since. The desert of New Mexico still holds its secrets close. The Foster Ranch is quiet now, the wind whistling through the scrub brush where memory metal once lay. But as long as we keep looking at the stars and wondering what if, the Roswell Files will never truly be closed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the heart of the mystery. If you enjoyed this exploration of the unexplained, the historical, and the hidden, if you want to discover more about the secrets our world is still keeping, please like this content and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep digging through the sands of history to find the truth that others want to keep buried. What do you think happened that night in July? Was it a balloon, a secret spy project, or a visitor from the stars? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.